Welcome to Echoes in the Gallery. I am your host, Susan L. Sistrunk. As an artist and educator, it is my privilege to bring you my original podcast set in a series of volumes. Each episode will air weekly on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts. Tonight, in episode 5 of Volume 2, Memories, we will find out a few things about Victoria's mysterious past. What exactly is she hiding? Will she escape from Daniel? Is law enforcement on the right track? How does Daniel know about the painting? Let us step into the gallery and begin. Chapter 5. Panic. This was bad. Beyond her amputated toe. Beyond the crazy shithouse rat of a fan holding her hostage. This was something she had not planned for. He knew. How did he know? No one could possibly know this. It was impossible. For what must be hours now, Victoria had been sitting in the dark, frantic with worry. The Rembrandt wasn't the only forgery. It was just the first one. He had said there was more where this came from. What did that mean? Had he found out about all the forgeries and tracked them down? How? Really? That was just beyond her comprehension. All of those paintings should be in museums. And if this person knew about the paintings, then what else did he know? There were others involved in this, but they were scattered and gone. And it wasn't in their best interest to bring any of this to light. And how did this man holding her hostage get the painting from the museum? None of this made any sense whatsoever. Victoria had been in college, broke, struggling to make ends meet and facing the possibility of not being able to afford tuition for the upcoming semester. While writing was her absolute passion, Victoria was also a gifted painter. She would paint long hours, and her art professors began to take notice of Victoria's exceptional skills. "You should really switch majors," her painting professor had seriously commented one day. "You are so gifted. It seems a shame to see your talent go to the written word." "I love writing. It's just where my heart belongs. Unfortunately, my job at the campus paper isn't helping too much with tuition these days, though. Do you have any ideas about jobs around campus?" "Well, I might have some side painting gigs if you're interested." And there it began. Harmless. The paintings were supposed to be replicas, to be in place of the real paintings when they were being cleaned. It wasn't until later, when Victoria accidentally saw the transaction of one of the original paintings late at night at the college, that she learned the truth. Her paintings were taking place of the original masterpieces and hanging on the walls of museums. The originals were being sold on the black market to the highest bidder. She broke off contact with the art department and completed her senior year as quietly as possible, terrified the truth would come to light. Her professor, Dr. Washburn, thankfully let her be and did not involve her further. But there was more. Things she knew about the professor. Other things she had discovered. They knew things about each other. The stalemate had kept things at bay, and the issue of forgery had died quietly. Victoria had always been terrified this would come to light. It seemed so unlikely it would, though. After all, what did Dr. Washburn or anyone have to gain by letting anyone know about what had happened? Did Washburn find out about the information Victoria had discovered about him? How did this crazy man find out and get his hands on at least one of the paintings? It was more imperative than ever that she escape. If anyone else found out about her involvement in this, she was in big trouble. Wait a minute. Which version of the painting did he have? The one from the museum seemed unlikely, but then so did the original sold on the black market. What the hell was going on? Time was getting shorter than she thought. Victoria had wanted to be stronger before attempting what came next, but now she was out of options. When her next meal came, she was going to put her little sliver of metallic hope to good use. Salvador, the sheriff, and the FBI were combing through the woods. Arkansas was thick, he thought. He thought Texas was full of brush. Well, he thought at least every single plant didn't have thorns 2 inches long trying to kill you. It seemed kind of useless trudging through the woods like this, though. Salvador believed they should be doing house to house, but the local jurisdiction seemed to be in some sort of power struggle with those feds, and his opinion was overruled. He was told that was next on the list. If all these people could just put their egos away and find this woman, that would be great. It really didn't matter which one of these agencies took the credit at this point in time, just as long as she was found safe, which was seeming more and more unlikely as the days went by. Something inside Salvador believed she was alive, though. For some reason, he just didn't think this nut job who had kidnapped Victoria wanted to kill her. No, he had something else in mind. Salvador just didn't know what yet. "Over here!" One of the deputies yelled out frantically. Everyone came running to the side hurriedly. Salvador, feeling dread in the pit of his stomach, came running over. If they found her out here, the news would almost certainly not be good. Upon reaching the frantic deputy, the officials looked down to find footprints in the mud next to what looked like a campfire. Sheriff Burnett reached up and smacked the deputy on the back of the head. "Oh, who gives a damn, you fool? It's just a hunting fire." "Sheriff, it's not hunting season. Those are hunting boots, all right, but there isn't anyone who comes up in this area during this time of year off the grid like this." The fire pit looked to be a few days old, and there were 2 sets of tracks, one smaller. Unfortunately, the tracks were limited to around the fire pit, as brush, leaves, and grass covered the ground spreading out from around the fire pit. Salvador looked at Sheriff Burnett. "How far are we from that abandoned car now?" "About 2 miles. Why?" The sheriff furrowed his brow. "I think our guy is close. I think we're looking for a cabin of some sort within a 2 to 5 mile radius. I don't think he killed her. I think he wants her alive. For some reason, this guy wants Victoria Graham alive." Salvador turned to Special Agent Weston of the FBI. "How about that house-to-house search now?" Weston nodded and put in the call. Daniel was very pleased with himself. The look on her face had been priceless. The last thing she had been expecting was for him to show her that painting. The way her eyes widened had been worth everything he had done and gone through up to this point. Faking his death had been remarkably easy once he found out where the art was stored. His boss found it necessary to keep written records of all the things he acquired, legally or otherwise. He traveled with all of his records, and when Daniel grew tired of reading his Victoria Graham novel, he got nosy. He read about his boss acquiring the Rembrandt, and then the Vermeer, then the Picasso, and a Kandinsky, all under the ruse of someone creating fakes to be on display during cleaning. Then, when the original was off the wall, poof, gone. Why hadn't any of this made news? Probably too embarrassing for the museums. It happened really close together. And apparently he used the same artist for the first few. The artist had been a college student at the University of Texas at Austin. At first, he didn't see the connection. Then he found an invoice for one of the paintings. It was for the reproduction of a Rembrandt. It was from a V. Graham. Wait, there was no possible way. The coincidence was just too great. He researched the dates and found out that was indeed when Victoria had been a student at the University of Texas at Austin. Daniel was already infatuated. And this ignited his obsession. He began the planning, the preparations. Daniel was methodical about every detail. His boss would be suspicious and realize that he'd probably faked his own death and stolen the art, but what could he do? There was no way for him to go to the authorities without outing himself as an art thief. He secured a false identity. Daniel cleared out his considerable offshore accounts, which no one knew about, and the ruse was almost complete. The day before the trip to the mountains, when his boss was going to be away for a couple of days, Daniel loaded all the art into a truck and shipped it back to the States to a waiting courier who would transfer it to a climate-controlled storage facility. And now he was here, with her. She was going to write what he wanted her to, every word, or he would turn her in as an art forger. Or maybe he would make an anonymous phone call and turn her into his boss with the paintings. That was beginning to sound even better to him. Victoria was sweating. The man hadn't been in the room in quite some time. She was having a hard time controlling her breathing, but knew it was imperative to remain as calm as possible. This was just so bad. No. She didn't just have to worry about escaping the madman. Victoria had to worry about the paintings and whatever evidence he might have against her. She was beginning to see only one way out of this mess, and it would take all of her courage to do it. Adrenaline kept her awake as the time crept by. She knew it wouldn't be much longer, so she began to put part of her plan into action. Nothing bleeds like a head wound, right? Victoria took the small box cutter blade she had found in the backyard and sliced her forehead near the hairline, deep. Blood began to flow down her face. This was it. Victoria let out the shrillest, most blood-curdling scream she could possibly produce from her tiny body. She laid down on the floor with her hair covering her face, hands tucked under her body to conceal the blade. The door lock began to turn. Victoria let out low moans as the man entered the room shouting, "What the hell is going on? What happened?" He saw the blood pooling on the floor and rushed to Victoria's side. His fingers brushed the hair away from her forehead as he examined the wound. This was it. Victoria reached up and plunged the blade into the side of the man's neck, slicing downward. His blood began to spill all over her body. The man couldn't live, not even if he let her go. Not with what he knew. He began to hit back at Victoria, but she held on like a wild animal, not letting go of him or the blade. She felt the blade sink into her fingers along with his neck. The man tried to stand up, but the loss of blood was making him weak. He was gurgling while blood was pouring out of his neck and mouth. By now, the blade was almost entirely inside his neck. Still holding on to the man with all of her strength, she felt him collapse. He landed on top of her, his weight crushing her. Victoria rolled him off of her and looked. His eyes stared fixed up at the ceiling of the tiny room. Daniel was dead. Victoria saw the key on the floor of the room where the man had dropped it. She unlocked her ankle and, getting up slowly from the floor, walked shakily out of the room. She needed to find a phone. After more than 10 years, it was time to call Gwen. This concludes tonight's episode of Echoes in the Gallery. Be sure to stay tuned for episode 6 of Volume 2, Merging Realities, where our timelines and characters begin to come into one truth and we learn about Gwen, the real Gwen. Until then, this is your host, Susan L. Sistrunk, wishing you a good evening. Stay safe and love each other.